This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
All right, there he is. How you feeling, my man? You feeling good?
What's up, man? How are you?
I'm doing good, man. I can't complain. All right, so is the Washington Commander fan finally going to get the relief that they deserve, Ian? Because we've watched this mess in Washington for a long time. And dude, I get that the shield has to protect the shield. So any mess in Washington or any mess in Miami with Ross and Flores or whatever, they've got to try to protect them to protect the shield, which is more important than the Dolphin shield or the W in Washington. And I understand all of it, but it has to get to a point where the other owners have to say, bro, this is enough already. So what happens in Commander Land for those fans?
Yeah, and I would say, protect the shield. Protect the shield is an interesting one because I don't know what that means in this context, right? Like, does that mean protect the Washington Commanders, or does it mean protect the 31 other owners who allegedly were having, ticket revenue taken out from under them and not paid to them? Like, that's a real interesting question. And remember, if these allegations are true, which we don't know right now, we know that Congress is investigating. We know that several congressional members have come out strongly and said congressional members have come out strongly and said that they believe this is the case, but we don't have the proof. We have not seen it. But if they are taking ticket revenue that should go to fellow owners and taking it themselves, that is a serious allegation, and that might be something that the 31 other owners would get together and vote and say, you know what, maybe that is enough to take the team away from Dan Snyder and force him to sell, because that is the only way that's going to happen. It's not Roger Goodell making a unilateral decision. It's all the owners together making their decision.
But Ian, the other day they had this event for something, and Dan was the first guy there on the podium, ready to go, and he's not supposed to be running things, and yet the league still allows him to be doing it and all that. Why haven't they kind of stepped in to try to separate church from state?
Yeah, and I think they have. No, well, I mean, you can't. I mean, I guess you could, but you can't really tie his hands down and force him out of the building. I do not believe that he is running things on a day-to-day basis. That is my understanding, and I hope that is the case. I'm not in the Washington Commanders building. I don't know for sure, but I would say, if he is running things more than he should, then that is a dangerous line to walk with the NFL, which is already clearly frustrated by him. I mean, and we know that because remember during Super Bowl when, there was another allegation and the Commanders came out and said, oh, we're going to, investigate ourselves. And the NFL said, actually, no, we are going to investigate. And we're appointing Mary Jo White to, step in and all these different things. So the NFL is already frustrated with the Commanders. So I don't know that they're going to take his word for it. And I know that if there was any impropriety, it would only make things worse for him.
By the way, I'm proud to. I've known you for a while now, obviously for easily 15 years, and I'm happy to have you on. I'm glad the way you carry yourself when you report things, because, brother, this week some of the Dwayne Haskins stuff. My Lord, brother, I am just cringing at the way things are being reported at times, and we gotta have a little bit more respect for the dead, dude. I mean, listen, if it's Fidel Castro or somebody like that dies, and you want to maybe take a shot at somebody like that, that's fine. But Dwayne Haskins, my man, he was a good kid. Why do we have to bring even football in here into account or anything like that? Just really weird how that story was handled this week by several.
Well, I would just say for me, just talking about myself and how I handled it, look, I want to break every story. I'm always in a race, as you know, to break every story. And that's why we had to delay this, because I wanted to break the Derek Carr contract extension that I just tweeted right before coming on. And I want to break every story. But, when I caught wind of the unfortunate and tragic death of Dwayne Haskins, just for me personally, not talking about anyone else, I was not in a rush to break that. I talked to the team, reached out to the agent. I was comfortable letting the team announce that. It didn't feel great to me to, announce someone's passing unless, the family comes to you and say, hey, we'd like you to announce this. So that was just how I handled it. And, it's there's so many unfortunate things here. I got to know Dwayne fairly well over the course of the last several years. He came on my podcast. He was a really good guy. I know he was working as hard as he could with the Steelers. They were really, kind of optimistic about his prospects, and I know they just liked him. And that was, the saddest thing for me is like he found a place that was really good for him. He was in a great spot, and the team really liked him. And, this tragedy happens. It was just very, very sad for everyone involved.
Yeah, man. It's just, and apparently we have a local report that says he left a car walking because he left a woman that was drunk or passed out in the car. And I don't know what's happened with that story, but man, that is a really, really tough story to watch. All right, let's go to the lighter side of all of this. What'd you think of our boy Mike McDaniel and the Warrior chant at the Tua Luau? Is he locked and loaded for the season now?
I guess this is it, right? I mean, once you hear the chant, that's it, right? I'm not totally familiar, but I think this has now kind of made him ready, right? Now he doesn't need to go through OTAs and minicamp.
Nah, he's set to go. He's set to go. And I've been talking about this the last couple. And look, every new coach, it's a new, fresh start. Everybody's happy, all that stuff. But he has done, at least, you tell me from an outsider's point of view, it looks to me like he's done a phenomenal job of connecting with his team, with his players, which at least that sets the foundation for you to at least then now coach them and reach them. So I give him credit for that, at least, because it's completely different than what the experience we've had here the last couple of years.
Yeah, and I have no idea how good of a coach Mike McDaniel is going to be, but it's going to be fascinating to watch for a lot of reasons. One, he is brilliant. And, he has been always, as we've talked about, the X's and O's dynamo behind Kyle Shanahan. So now he's bringing that to his own team. Dolphins already have pretty good players. So, what is that going to mean? And how is that going to translate on the field? That's going to be really fun to see. And he's not a guy who really, he doesn't scream and yell. He's not going to, be all motivating. If he wants something out of you, he's going to tell you how to do it and just expect you to do it. That's a little bit of a different way of coaching. But, for this generation of players, maybe that's it. I'm older than a lot of these players, but I don't really like to be yelled at either, honestly. That wouldn't work for me. And for players, I'm not sure that works either. Stop yelling.
It's very few. Yeah, very few of them.
So
very few. Yeah. I'm with
so I don't know.
That.
It is going to be an incredibly interesting situation in Miami. I will say that.
It's interesting that you broke the Derek Carr story. And by the way, he broke the story where they have agreed to a 3-year contract extension worth $121.5 million. The agreement ties Carr to Vegas through 2025. He's already in the longest tenured QB in the AFC. And it's interesting because what's going on in Miami, and I want to bring it over to Derek Carr now. For a couple of years, we kind of felt that Derek Carr wasn't in the right place because with John Gruden, at times it seemed like there was some friction. And then there was always these stories about him being on the trade block and all of these things. And at the end of the Gruden run, it seemed like there was a come to Jesus moment between those two, that some kind of a comfort zone was starting to be felt. And then after the whole Gruden mess, and he was obviously pushed out the door over the last year, he's kind of settled in. And now he gets this new contract. He gets Devontae Adams. But it almost seems, and you probably have more insight than any of us here on this, but it almost seems like, in a way, what's going on with Tua where maybe he wasn't in the best of place with Flores and all of that. Well, Derek looks like he's in a better
Yeah.
place than he was a few years ago also.
Yeah, and I would say that's the case as well. And this always frustrated me because every time that John Gruden had the opportunity to support Derek Carr or even just say like, "Hey, this guy's my quarterback," he never really did it. He
Right.
always was like, "Yeah, we're always looking for better. We're always looking for more." And I'm like, okay, well, it's hard to find a starting quarterback in the NFL. I mean, you see the teams that don't have one. Now you have one. Why would you not support him? And I never felt like John Gruden did, but the way Derek Carr is, like he handles himself as well and as classy as anyone could have possibly, handle themselves, despite never really getting a real true vote of confidence. Well, this is a vote of confidence. This is the organization. This is the Raiders saying, you are our guy. We are going to pay you like a legitimate franchise quarterback. And now we're moving forward with what I think is going to be a really, really good team.
I've said this before because I talked about this with Tua and Flo, and Flo also never really was behind. And I said, why don't you adopt a dog and throw it in the corner and just throw food at it and never pet it and never love it and see how that relationship's going to turn out. Have a kid. Never tell the kid you love him or her. Never support the kid. See how that relationship's going to turn out. Anything has to be nurtured, dude.
Yeah.
Whether it's a plant, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a reporter and an agent, a reporter and a front office executive,
Yeah.
a reporter and a scout, because I've done the same thing the same way. Any relationship must be nurtured. And in a way, you kind of get that feeling that threshold was crossed for Derek. And it looks like now that threshold has been crossed for Tua here in Miami.
Yeah, and I would agree on that. And I think, for Tua, look, I mean, he's under contract, but I think it's pretty clear it's a big year for him. But the main thing for me is he really has tools to be successful. Like he could go out there and just distribute the ball, and he doesn't have to be Tom Brady, doesn't have to be Aaron Rodgers. He can just distribute the football to really good players, and that is a successful quarterback. It's not like Brady's throwing the ball 50 yards down the field anytime either, honestly. Like, just get the ball to your good players and do it in rhythm, and you'll be fine. I think that's where Tua is, and that's where he should be, and they're going to run the ball really well because that's what Mike McDaniel does. I think it's going to be, as positive a season, at least just from the outset, that it could be for Tua.
Ian Rapoport joining us here in our Slomin's look around the NFL. Ian, the Dolphins brought in Reuben Foster. Not necessarily a fan of that one, but they're also bringing in Melvin Ingram, and they brought him in last year and didn't sign him. I kind of get the feeling this one might work out. So what are you hearing? Because it's clear they're looking for a linebacker, and I would love to see Melvin Ingram in a Dolphin uniform. Talk to me.
Yeah, and the fact that, he decided to take a visit is a good sign because, he had not taken one to my knowledge in free agency. At this point in the offseason, you really, if you're going to take a visit, you got to be serious about a team. Not saying he's signing, but you got to at least be serious, and I think they are serious. He's serious. The way he played last year in Kansas City was really, really impressive. That was probably as well as he'd played in a couple years. If the Dolphins get that, then they're looking at, they don't have a lot of holes to fill in the draft. They have some, but not a lot. This would be sort of the finishing touches, I think, of a really, really good offseason in Miami.
All right, we'll wrap it up with this. We'll be in Vegas in a couple weeks for the draft. I just get the feeling that it's a really kind of messed up situation at the top of the draft, that like this is the year you really don't want to have a top pick because there isn't that knockout superstar. And it's almost like I wonder what's going on at the top of the draft because I don't get the feeling there's a ton of teams trying to move up. And I get the feeling that there's a bunch of those teams at the top that would love to move down. So what are you hearing about what's going on? Because it just sounds so undecided at the top of that draft.
Yeah, and I would say, that's probably a right read. This is a draft where its strength is really, 16 to 40, probably 15 to 40, something like that. So, there's not – basically what I mean by that is you get essentially late first round or deep into the second round, which is good. But if you have the number one pick, you might get a player who's only a small bit better than that. There's no, Myles Garrett pass rusher in the top of the draft, for instance. But doesn't mean you can't be successful. That's just what it looks like. So probably in the top of the draft, you're probably looking at, some really good core pieces, guys that teams would be happy with. But if you're the Jets and the Giants and you have 2 top 10 picks, probably wish for a little more, but you hope somebody wants to trade up and maybe you get some future assets as well.
Well, we'll wrap it up with this. The Jacksonville Jaguars, I got to tell you something. Aiden Hutchinson and Walker, they look like good players. But I've seen, they don't look to me like a Watt. They don't look to me like something super special.
Yeah.
And if I have what I think is a special quarterback, I don't care what he did last year. That poor kid did not have the structure around him to succeed. He's going to be a stud. I wouldn't bother with a defensive end, dude. I'd build the wall of Montezuma in front of that kid. We saw what happened with Andrew Luck. Don't allow stuff like that to ever happen again. You get to draft a generational dude. Bro, take care of him. Draft the lineman. That's what I would do. I would go with the what's his name? The Ikam Iwakunu, whatever the name. And kid. I would go with that kid and protect. Wrapping it up with that, what would you do if you're the Jags?
Well, I think for the Jaguars, what they have to look at is what do they have already. I mean, they do have decent tackles. They do have solid tackles in Cam Robinson. He's on the franchise tag. Again, you wonder if they lock him up to a long-term deal. That'd be interesting to see. If they do, it might signal they're going defense. Really interesting decision going forward. But, to me, it feels like defense. But, we'll probably see in a little more than 2 weeks, which is exciting.
All right, good stuff. Follow him on Twitter at RapSheet. Catch his work at the NFL Network. And, of course, breaking stories all the time. And catch him every Wednesday here. Ian, as always, thank you, my brother. Appreciate you.
Thanks, man. Good talking to you as always.
You got it. There you go. Ian Rapoport, baby, right here on the program.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.